Before entering any assignments for a particular class, you must first set up your categories. The categories and weights that you will use will depend on your particular subject area, and these categories and weights are determined by the district, especially in the core subject areas. Also, with district approval, some schools have special categories and weights that align with their campus policies. Before you set up your categories and weights, be sure you have communicated with your department head or administrator to ensure that you utilize the correct categories and weights for your course. Choices for the categories include formative, summative link, and all work. We will look at each of these options in just a moment. If you are viewing this before the start of the school year and the drop-down menu has defaulted to current marking period, you may not be viewing your courses. Change this drop-down menu to all, and that will change this view on the screen. Select which course you want to now create your categories and click on the Define link. I'm going to select First Period. The Categories tab will be defaulted, and that's the screen you will see. First thing is, do not ever use this option to calculate average using total points. By checking this box, you will totally override your selections of categories and weights for your course. So do not ever check this box. Also, you will not need to set up a semester exam. If your course requires a semester exam, it will already be preset to give an exam field and to calculate your semester grade with a semester exam weighted at 20% of the grade. When you set up your categories, each 9 weeks grade is automatically programmed to calculate as 40% of the semester grade, adding up to 80% for the 2 9 weeks. And then the semester exam will calculate as 20%. If you do not give a semester exam, each 9 weeks will be worth 50% of the semester grade. So again, you will never use the selection of exam, semester exam that's shown here. So the selections you will use may be formative, summative link, and all work. For most courses, the categories are formative and summative. Formative grades are those grades that monitor student learning and provide ongoing feedback. These grades are used by instructors to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. Formative grades may include homework, class grades, daily work, group work, a draft for a writing assignment, or an outline. You may also include quizzes here or choose to put them in the summative category. Summative grades are designed to evaluate student learning at the end of an instruction unit. The summative grades may include end of unit or chapter tests, projects, research papers, etc. The summative link allows you an option where you can collect a number of grades and average them for one summative grade as a portion of the 9 weeks grade. So I could set up a summative link, for example, which would include all my quizzes. If I wanted to accumulate a group of quizzes and have them weighted as one test grade, I could use the summative link for that. But be very careful in using this option that you are sure you understand how it functions. And then finally, there is the all work category. The all work category can be used for courses where all grades will be equally weighted. This may include courses like PE, all of our aid positions, some art courses, or other electives. Again, you will want to discuss your particular course with your department head or administrator to be sure you set the categories and weights properly for these courses. For our first example, we're going to look at setting up formative and summative categories now. So on the Categories tab, I'm going to select the formative link or checkbox here. When we talk about the weight of a category, what we are talking about is the value that the category will have in calculating the overall 9 weeks grade. Some examples of formative and summative weights are 40-60, where the formative is 40% of the grade and the summative is 60%, or 30-70, where the formative is 30% and the summative 70%, or 25-75 or 50-50. You get the idea. For our example, we will use a 40-60 split. So my formative weight is 40%. So I will enter a 0.4 here, which is the decimal equivalent of 40% for the formative category under this weight column. The next selection is drop lowest. This lets me choose to drop the lowest grade in this category. If I select a 1, it'll drop the 1 lowest grade, or if I select 2 or 3, it will drop more. The default is to drop no grades, and that's why this is set at 0. Be very careful in using this option as well, especially when dropping summative grades, as you can inadvertently cause one summative to be weighted more than the district allows. Also, the drop lowest option is designed to drop the lowest percentage score. So if you vary your point values on your assignments, you may sometimes not drop grades of the same value across students. So if you use this option, you should use the same point value, 100 points, on all your assignments. Remember, at any time, you can click on the Help icon up here at the top of the screen for assistance on the current page. I'm going to leave this set at 0, so none of my assignments in this category will be automatically dropped. Under the marking periods column, I will not make any selection. Leave these unchecked. The program defaults to include both marking periods. What these options are for, they're available if I want to set up something different for one of the 9 weeks. So if I don't want my setup to be the same for both 9 weeks, I could select one of these. If you do mistakenly select one of these boxes, you will see multiple lines for formative and summative, so you'll need to go back in and edit your selections. Again, do not select either of these marking periods, and your setups will default to apply to both 9 weeks in the semester. In the Exclude Missing Scores from the Average, I have the option to make missing scores count as a 0, but I highly recommend you do not use this option. If you make missing scores count as a 0 and you enter a new assignment, as soon as one grade is entered, all other students will have a 0 for a grade, which will skew your averages and tends to upset parents. It is wise to use the default here to exclude missing scores from the average. You can hand enter a 0 if the student did not turn in an assignment or you intend them to have a 0 for some reason. Or you can use one of the default codes for absent students or students who are exempt from a particular assignment. So I'm going to leave the default here. Now I'm going to click Save, and that will save my formative category. Because I have only one category set up so far, my percent column shows 100%. This is one way to check that your setups are correct. When I have completed my categories, this percent should match my weight. In this case, it should reflect 40%, but this will not happen until we have our summative category also entered. Now I will put a check by the summative category. Since my breakdown in this example is 40/60, I will now enter a 0.6 for my summative weight. I will leave the default for drop lowest to 0 and leave the marking periods unchecked and leave the default for exclude missing scores from the average. Now when I click Save on this line, my percentages correctly reflect 40% for formative and 60% for summative. If I see more than 2 lines here, it means I checked one of the boxes for the marking period. So I will need to go back and edit my formative or summative line by clicking on the Edit link. One caution, be careful as you plan that you are sure you have enough summative grades. For this example, the summative category is 60% of the 9 weeks grade. District policy states that no one grade can be worth more than 20% of the 9 weeks overall grade. So in our summative category, I must have at least a minimum of 3 summative grades so that each is worth no more than 20%. This is discussed more in the video that explains how grades are weighted and calculated in eSchool. In our next video, we will see how to enter assignments for the course. But I want to take a moment in this video to show how to set up the All Work category, if that is the setup for your course, and some other variations. Unchecking my formative and my summative categories will delete the options I have selected. Now I will check the all work category. In this category, all my work averages to 100% of the grade. So my weight is 100%, which in decimal form is a 1. So I will enter a 1 here. I could set my default for drop lowest to a 1 or 2 if I want to use that option. And I'm going to not check my marking periods, leave my exclude and missing scores, and save. The percent here now reflects 100%, which means all my work that I enter will be weighted equally to add up to 100% of the grade. There are a few campuses that use a mix of the formative, summative, maybe summative link or all work categories. That's up to your campus. However, be sure that your setup is correct and always make sure your percent column reflects the percent that you intend for that category. I'll show you an example. If I make formative 40% again and save, summative I'll make 50% and save, and my all work category I'll make 10%. Maybe I want my quizzes to go into all work. You can see now my percent has adjusted to 40%, 50%, and 10%. However, if I take out that all work, I get some crazy percentages because my weights do not add up to 100% of a grade, and so eSchool compensates over here. So let me edit my summative grade to be back to 60% and save. Now that I have categories and weights entered, my assignment tabs becomes available for me to now enter assignments. We will go into assignments in our next video. One final note, you will need to enter categories for each of your courses. There is a way to copy the categories over to your other courses, but with the selections I just showed you, it's quite easy just to enter them, and sometimes it's less complicated just to go into each class and set up your categories.